Okay, so today I will discuss about object-oriented programming. So in Python, so how you will handle object-oriented programming. Okay, so basically the object-oriented program is it has the below principles. So those are like encapsulation and data abstraction and polymorphism and inheritance. So these four are the principles in object oriented programming. So what do you mean by object oriented programming and how will handle in Python? So object oriented program is nothing but see, you will have some classes. Let's say you can take fruits or human or anything. It's a category of real things. So those will call it as a class. So class it defines a data type which contains variables and properties and methods. Okay, so if you take any category, so which will have some content properties. So let's say if you take any fruit is a category. So fruit, if you take an class, so fruit will have properties. So number of I mean how many types of fruits and fruits names and different categories. Okay, so if you take human, there will be some like different categories and name and address and phone number. So these kind of things. If you take an employee, so employee will have id and phone number and name and address and etc. So these will call it as a class. So okay, so okay, so here is the syntax. We'll create classes in Python. So class and name, and you have to give colon and again indentation, and there will be constructors and statements and methods and etc. Okay, we'll discuss this now. So before going to that, so I will explain a few things about object-oriented programming in theoretically. So those are like if you take the first one is encapsulation. Encapsulation is nothing but data hiding. Encapsulation is the mechanism for restricting the access of to some of an object's components. Let's say if you define an object, so objects will have few properties. So you have to restrict those properties. So those we can't access from outside the class. So that will call it as an encapsulation and a data abstraction. So data is similar to encapsulation. So we can get the data from the class. Like you can retrieve the properties and you can retrieve the methods and all. Okay, so polymorphism, like polymorphism is nothing but, say, if you take a fruit, so that will have different forms. Like the fruits, there will be a lot of types of fruits. Like if you take any category, so it will have different forms. So that will call it as a poly is nothing but multiple types. Okay, so the last one is inheritance. So Python will support inheritance. You can inherit properties of base class to the subclass. So this is the name itself, it is saying like inherit. You can inherit properties from base class to a subclass. So that will show with the program, so then you'll get a clear idea. So first you see the class. Okay, you can create a class. This is the syntax. So class is the keyword, so you have to give class space class name. So I'm just giving the name as Adit App. Okay, so the name you can give anything. So the preferably class name can be start with the capital letter. So the name will be like I'm just giving arithmetic operations and column, and you have to give indentation and print inside class. Okay. So this is how we can create the class. So now we'll see few parameters here. So the first one is constructor. So constructor is nothing but you can construct the class. So while initialization, so this we have to define a predefined method. Okay. I just defined one constructor here. So we'll see what is the use of constructor. So let's say I'm just creating one object. So next object. So object is nothing but it's an instance of a class and it's a real entity of a class. Let's say if you take a one fruit is a class, the real entity is like what are the types in fruits like apple and mango. So these are the objects. Okay. So we just created a class for arithmetic operations. So we are just creating one object for that class. Okay, I'm just creating one object. Like you can give the object name O equal to specify at the top. Let us specify like this. Okay, the moment. So we are just created an object O for the class at the top. So we'll see now. I'm just running that. See. So if you create the first, this line will execute inside class. Okay. So you just created one constructor. So while initializing, while calling the object, so I have to call like this: at the class name and open brace and close brace. So while call this, the moment while calling this, the class will initialize in the constructor. So it will construct one object. So this function it will call defaultly. So that will call it as a constructor. Okay, so whatever you write here, the code will execute once you call the object. Okay, so for creating a class, this constructor is optional. Either you can give or you cannot give. That's your wish. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll just commenting this and I'm running. So see inside class. So this section I commented I didn't give, that is optional. So the first line it will execute. Okay, so that is the use of constructor. Similarly, in the class, you can create a number of methods. So let's say I want to create one method here. So using if we have to create a method, add, I'm just give add and cell a comma b and print a plus b. Okay, I just created one method, so without creating a constructor, and so I just created one object O and I want to use this method. So how to use? So you have to use like this: the object dot and the method name. Okay, so here if you see add is having three parameters. One is self and other one is ab. So self, this is a special argument here. So here we don't need to pass anything. The self is default, it will carry the object. So here arithmetic op arithop is the class, right? So you have to give self to all functions, so the self will carry the object. That means, so whenever you give o dot something, so the self will tells that, so this function is part of this class. So whatever you create a variables here, that will be applied to the particular method. So the self is continuation of the class, so you don't need to pass anything self. So we have to pass the other parameters a comma b. So if you see here, three parameters, three arguments we mentioned, but we have to pass only two. The self is it's a object parameter, so this won't take any value. Okay, so now what we have to give, 10 comma 20, and we are just I'm just printing the value. See, it's going inside a method and print a plus b 30, and it's returning a plus b, and it's printing here 30. Okay, so so we pass the arguments to particular method. So instead of that, if you create a constructor here, so now I'll show you how to use the constructor. I'm just creating this constructor. So while creating a constructor, you can give arguments. Okay, so if you not give arguments, those are the optional. If you not give arguments also, no problem. So I'm just specifying a comma b here, and here what I'll do is self dot a. So here self is the it will refers to the object. So if you define self dot a, so this is the global for entire class, so you can access anywhere self dot a. So I'm just giving self dot a equal to a, and self dot b equal to b. Okay, so here I will remove those. We can directly access the values here, because those we are defining constructor self dot a plus self dot b. Okay, we'll just define yes. Okay, that is how we can use. And if you want to give any parameter, you can give, you can call as, you can take as an argument. Okay, so while creating an object, so here the constructor we defined as a two arguments. So self you ignore, you don't need to pass anything. A comma b, two arguments you define, but here we are not passing any argument, so it will throw an error. So we have to pass those arguments, 10 comma 20. Okay, so the moment if you create object like this, so it will go here, it will construct, so it will assign self dot a equal to 10 and self dot b equal to 20. So next add, so add we are not taking any argument, so you no need to give. So we are taking the values from self dot a and self dot b, so the sum will have a plus b, 10 plus 20 30. See, some 30. Okay, so that is how you can define a methods here. Similarly, you can create a statement, you can give any statements. So the class we have to create class name, and constructor and methods and statements and etc etc. So this constructor is optional, you can give. Okay, let's say you have a big class, so class is having like more than 10-15 methods. So what you will do while constructing, you will define all the arguments you will pass, and you will define here whatever you want. So those values you can use in other classes, so that is the easiest method. So that is how we'll use constructor. Okay, so are you clear with constructor, or do you have any doubt on that? Hello. Okay, fine. So, here is the accessing attributes. So you can access attributes. So like this, whatever we shown. So let's say, so we can define object here, and if you want to access the method, you can call like this. Instead of that, if you want to access a value, so here I'm just printing. I'm just giving one variable. Let's say count equal to 0. See, so whatever you define inside a class, you can access. Okay, print o dot count, so object dot count. So it is giving a 0. So that is how you can access attributes. So next we have few things. So similar to this, if you want to get an attribute, so we'll use like this object dot that method or the variable. So instead of this, we have other way, get attributes of object name. So let's say,
పోర్చుగల్ అక్కడికి వెళ్తాడు బాబు.
okay, so the same method I'll use here of object o comma count. See, the syntax is you have to give get attribute and object and the variable name. So this is the attributes. So you can give like this. Okay. So you have to specify in quotes. So whatever you want, it will print. Okay. So if you want to see for B, so B what do you give? B we gave 20, so 20 has to print. Okay. So let's say if we change 30, then it has to print 30. So this is how you can retrieve. So normally if you want to retrieve, other way is we'll use like this: print o dot a. See, we're accessing. So like this we can access the variables and methods. So the same way we can give get attributes. Okay. So if you want to set anything, I mean if you want to assign a value, so o dot a equal to, so let's say 100. I'm just assigning 100, and you give o dot add of, see, it is taking 100 and it's adding to 30. So O dot A, we are assigning to 100. So O dot A is nothing but O is the object of arithop. So it will go here arithop constructor. So A, so O is nothing but object. So self dot A is nothing but object dot A and equal to A. So what we are passing 100. So O dot A equal to 100, object this A equal to 100. Then if you call add method, so add method what it will take, self dot A plus B. So A is 100 now and B, so B is still 30, so 100 plus 30, 130. Okay, so this will take a new value. So the same thing if you want to do, you can use same thing, set attribute of object name and value name and the value. See, now it's taking new value 150, 120 plus 30, 150. Okay. Similarly, we have delete attributes. So that will delete the attribute or variable. So you can specify, so del of o comma. So here I just want to delete. Deleted. So if you try to access this, see, it is throwing an error because attribute array top instant has no attribute A, because we just removed the attribute self dot A. So o dot A, self dot A we removed, but still we are accessing this. So that is the reason it is throwing error. Okay, so these three are, we can set the value to the attributes, we can get a value of the attributes, and even you can delete an attribute. Okay, so using this we can do this kind of operation. Next, so class is having some built-in attributes. So using this you can get the properties of the class. So these are like special attributes. So you can see underscore underscore dict underscore underscore. So this will give dictionary containing the class namespace. See that now. The dictionary is like this. So dict of the class. So constructor, you just define the two variables. So it will define like a is a and b and those values. So what you create. Okay. Similarly, I'm just creating. You can create a number of objects, right? So that is. So I'll just create a new object like O2 OB and at the top of some 100 comma 200. Okay. So if you print, if you print dict here, so this has to print the dictionary of these two values. So a is 100 and b is 200. Okay. See 100 and 200. So we have two objects, one is o and the other one is ob underscore 2, and this is having this is the dictionary and this one is having second dictionary. Okay. Let's say, so in this constructor, so as we discussed in definitions, we can define default arguments here. So I'm just giving one argument, default argument c equal to 30. Okay. And self dot c equal to c. See now. So we didn't pass the c while creating object because we defined as a c. The default it is a 30. So self dot c equal to c. So c is 30. Okay. So the dict will show the dictionary of the class. So what are the attributes? So what are the values? So it will show. So the next one is doc. So if you have any documentation, it will show here. So documentation is none because we didn't give any documentation. So how we can give a documentation here? So like the same for definitions. So we can give the documentation in triple quotes. So this is documentation we can give for this class. This printing here. So whatever you mention the documentation for class like this, so that will print. Okay. So the next is name. So this will give name of the class. So what is the class name here? Class name is Haritop. So just print. So for name we have to use the name of the class. So object, I think this method is not there. So you have to specify the class name. Even for this also you can specify the class name, and that will return the doc and dictionary. So it is printing the class name. And next module. So here module is, it is giving the main. So main is the module. So why? Because we are creating objects and we are running this code here only. So instead of this, if you create a new file and there if you import this particular class and if you use, it will show a different module. Okay, so I'll show that. So how to use in a different file. Okay, so that is the module. So this base, and one more we have bases. So that will give if you have in, if you are using an inheritance, so that will give base class. Okay, so here we are not using any inheritance here, so that is throwing only empty. So there is no base classes, there is no base classes, so it's throwing empty. So if we define, if we inherit any class, so that will show the base class. Okay, so while inheritance will get clear idea on this. Okay, now I'll discuss about main. So we have one more. And similarly if you print underscore underscore name, okay, see the name, it will print the module of the class, so similar like module. Okay, so this is the special attributes, so this will print the module. So now if underscore underscore name equal to underscore underscore main, then we can say print. Okay, okay, so what I'm doing here, see, so if you execute like this, so first it has to call the main module. So I'm just giving if the name equal to main, if it is a main module, then it has to execute all this code, and along with it will execute the next code also. Okay, so it is executing this. See, it is executing inside main and outside of main also. So then what is the use of main? So I'll show. So I just created a class in this particular file, Python file, and I'm just using the class here itself. So instead of that, if I want to use this class as a model, so I want to use this class in some other location. So let's say this class is having 100 methods, so you want to use these 100 methods in some other class. So how we will use? Okay, in models, you just I'm just creating one file, Python script. So here I want to use. So how you will use models? Import. You can use the class arithop. Sorry, import class, a file name, example. Okay, you can create object equal to th of 1 comma 2. Okay, I just use this class in some other file. So now I'm just executing the file. See here, if you see this, so Python, I'm just executing this script. So here, this is executing this line object, I'm just creating 1 comma 2 and I'm printing object. Okay, so the moment if you execute this, um, if I create object for this class, so if you see the class here, I just define this methods and I'm just adding the code here. Okay, so since I'm just importing the file, so it has to call all methods now. So but if you see here, if the name equal to main, so if you print the name here, so you have to specify the module name. From the module name, I'm just importing star, importing all, and I'm calling this. So if that is going here and outside of main and inside class. So in between, if you see, it is printing the module. Module name is class example. Okay, so what we are giving here, if the module name is main, that means if you are executing the code like this, if you directly executing this file, then the module will be in a main and it will execute this particular piece of code. Else if you are importing into some other file and using, so if you call like this, then the module will be the, this is the module, then it won't execute this particular code, so it will go here and it will execute the rest code. Okay, so that is the difference between the main and other class. See, if I execute the other script, so it is skipping this part, this particular part, and it is executing outside of main. Okay, so if you want to skip this also, then you can just put this in inside this if condition. Okay, so this the use of this condition is for unit testing. If you want to test any code, so while developing you can use like this. If you execute in production, or if you use this module in some other scripts, so this particular code won't execute, it will be like commenting part. Okay, if you execute the particular script, I mean the current script, it will execute, otherwise it won't execute. Okay, you can see the difference here, it's not executing outside of main. So that is the use. Now, so everything I'll put in main. Okay, I'm just commenting this also. See, if I execute now, nothing has to print. It has to print. First, we are importing all, no? So that is the reason it is printing this line. And next, we are creating an object. It's printing creating object. Next, we just created a class here. We just created an object for this class. Then it went to constructor and it's printing constructor. And we're just printing the object. So the object is printing. It's a class example. This is the module name dot arithop instance at this particular memory location. Okay, now you can access the methods. Object dot add so it is printing 3. Okay, so that is how we can use. So here you can create a number of classes and each class can have number of methods, so you can use here. So similarly I'll create one more method like def. So I'll create method like I'm just creating one method like add num, and so you can give one argument here like x. Okay, for the sum of all these elements, self dot a plus self dot b plus self dot c, whatever you define. So along with I want to add this x also. Okay, so a b c plus whatever you pass value, that also will add 4. Now I'll use print object dot uh, add underscore num, and we can pass the number is some 30. Okay, so what this output will return? So it will return, first it will add 1 plus 2, and see the default c I defined as a 30. So 33 plus 30, 63 it has to print. See, 63. Okay, so that is how we can use a classes and the methods. Okay, so here we have I'll discuss. So here we have two variables, actually two types of variables in class. One is class variable, other one is method variables. So the uh, so whatever you define outside of the methods, so those will called as a class methods. So class method, here the class method is count, and the inside whatever you define methods, so those will called as a method variables. Okay, so a is the method variables and this called count is the class variable. Okay, so let's see what is the use of class variable. So let's say, so we defined a class and we are creating a number of objects the particular class. So if you want to know that so what are the number of objects we created, so if you want to use that, then you can have one function here like number of like get count return dot count. Okay, so whenever you execute a constructor, that means whenever you create an object, so this count has to increment. So I'm just incrementing self dot count equal to, you can realize this, right, plus or equal to 1. Okay, so what will happen here? So the moment if you create an object, so this will come to the construction and it will initialize all variables, and the count also it will increase. That means one object has created. Okay, similarly if you create one more object, the count will increment, so count will be 2. So now what we are doing here, we are just returning back to the count. Okay, so we'll see now. So we just created only one object here, and I'm just printing of object dot get count. Okay, so get count, this has to return the count of the objects. Let's see that now. See, the number of objects are 1 because we have created only one. So let's create one more object. J1 equal to, okay, we created one more object. Sorry. So here we have to give the name of the class. Okay. See, for class variables, we should not use like this self.a because the self is an object. So this will use for method variables. Okay. So for class variables, we have to give class name dot the variable. Okay. So here instead of self, we have to give class name. So now see 2 now. Okay. So if you not create, so let's say I'm not creating any objects, so we just create only one object. So the count is 1 number of objects. So if I create object, so the count has to 2. Similarly, if you create C3. Okay, so if you want to get how many objects, so you can use a class variables, so like this. Okay, so that is the difference between method variable and class variable. Okay, that is how we can use. So next, so methods we already discussed. Okay. So similarly, constructor we have a destructor. Destructor is nothing but if you want to initiate the class, the constructor will the whatever you mention inside the constructor that will work. So if you want to remove something, if you want to delete the object, so that destructor will go. Okay. So like we are removing list and dictionary and tuples no using delete and something some object. So similarly you can delete the class also, you can delete the object also, that will call it as a destructor. So whatever you mention in destructor, so if you call delete object, okay, so when you mention delete, so this will go to the destructor. So now we didn't define any destructor since it's not this. So I just deleted object and I'm just accessing the method. So it has to throw an error. See, object already I removed, so object is not there. So it is throwing name error, name object is not defined. Okay, so that is how destructor will work. So if you want to override the destructor, so you can create a destructor in a class. So similarly constructor you can define destructor also. So there you can mention your methods whatever you want to do when you say destruct the object. uh, see uh, so when we define a destructor like this, so directly it won't delete the object. So when you define a destructor, first it will execute this method. And so here we define two objects, right? So it will applicable for one by one. So once it will go to the end, then it will delete the object. Okay. So if you give delete object here, so it is going inside this destructor and printing this. And again we have two objects, right? So it is applicable for two. And finally it is removing the object of this obj. See, we destructing the class and the object is deleting, and destructing the object class, the second one. If you print obj1, see, first it is destructing, and we can access print object. So this print, next it is going to the second object and it's destructing. So like that. So how many objects you created? So it will go one by one. Okay. So this deletion. So if you want to destruct something, you can define here. So let's say you defined a class. So constructor, you have defined some variables, like you are printing something and you are appending some data to the file. So while destructing, if you are deleting the object, so you have to clear the data from the file. So okay, so if you have such operation, you can do such operation here. Okay. So normally delete, what it will do, it will delete the object but it won't do any operation. So if you want to do such operations, you can do it here, you can mention here. So I'll give you one example. Let's say you are creating a database and you are inserting some data. Okay. While constructing, if you are creating a database and in the methods you are inserting the data, so if you want to delete the class, you have to remove everything. Okay, that is the use case. In that case, what you have to do, you can mention those operation in a destruction method. Okay. So that is the use of destruction. Okay. You can define destruction using underscore underscore delete. And so encapsulation. So encapsulation is nothing but restricting data to the object. So class, we can define the number of attributes or variables. So those we can say restrict, you can't access outside of the class. So we'll see those now. So we have three types of variables. So one is public variable, another one is protected, another one is private. So public, if you say public, so this variable we can access inside of the class and outside of the class. So like so what we define, this is the public. Okay. This is the public and class variable, so this you can access inside the class and even outside also. So if you define the count, we can access it. Even if you give self.a object.a also, you can access. So this will called as a public. But when you say private, if you define underscore underscore, you can't access outside. Self dot underscore underscore name equal to Python. Okay, you see here it's printing Python. So after object add a define, I'm just printing Python. Okay, so inside the class you can use this private variable. So if I define private variable object dot underscore name. See, it is throwing an error. Attribute instance has no attribute underscore name. But if you see inside you can access, outside you can't access. So that will call it as a private. But if you give a here, that will print. So it is printing. Okay, because that is a public variable. Okay, so this kind of restriction will call it as a encapsulation. So similarly we have one more protected. It's like public, but they should not be directly accessed from outside. So it's a combination of public and private. Directly you can't access. You have to give the class name dot underscore name. Okay, like this you can give the class name dot protected value. Okay, so we have class and object variables. So what are those? So this is the class variable. So what we defined after the class initialization. So whatever you define inside a method, so those will called as a object variables. Okay, so this class variable you can access using class name dot the variable name. So like this. So what we define here. So class name dot variable name. Okay, so these will called as object variables because we are just accessing through self object variable. Okay, so that is the difference. Okay, and one more here, I told self for object reference. Okay, if you give self here, that means you can access from outside. So if you not give self, this method you can't access from outside. So let's say I defined add and add underscore number, right? So if I remove add underscore number for self here, if you not give self, so uh, so if I use like this object dot add underscore num, so this will pay because there is no object here. So that is how the self will play. So if you want to keep the method for object, you can give as a self. Okay, and one more here, there is no rule we have to give self. You can give some other name. The rule is the first argument should be for object reference. Uh, so the naming convention will use self, so you can give some other name also. So that is your wish. You can give test, you can give python, you can give something else. Okay, there is no mandatory, you can give self, but preferably will use self. Okay, so that is the thing. uh, so next we'll go for inheritance. I just define. Okay, so this is one class I defined, and next at the one I'm just defining one more class. So I want to inherit at the top class property. So we can define this is the syntax class and new class name and bracket open bracket, and you can give the old class which you want to uh, inherit properties. So you can define like this. Okay, so this arithop 1 is inheriting from arithop, so this class will contain all these methods which is containing arithop. Okay, so here you can define one more method like sub of. So what this will do, self dot a minus self dot b. Okay, so we're just defining both, and if you create object for 10 comma 20, and you can give. Okay, so this is how we'll define normal classes. So I'm just including, see it is printing 30. Now uh, I'll create one class for new inheritance, ob1 equal to, I'm creating object for the second class op1, and you can say here we didn't create any constructor, but we just inherited from arithop, so that init also it will init also inherit to the second class. So whatever you give here that will go here and it will place. So if you not give, it will throw error. Okay, so we have to specify that also. 20 hello Isuja. Okay, are you clear? Okay, fine. So yeah, I'm just creating a new object, one more object for second class. So here I'm just giving arguments. So for the second class I can use both classes methods. So I can use these methods, I can use the second class methods also, because we just inherited the properties of old class. Okay, so here object 1 I can use add, and object 1, sorry, ob1 dot sub. Okay, so this has to print 20 10 30, and this has to print 20 minus 10 10 is has to print. See now 30 10. Okay, but if you see we didn't create constructor in the second class, even we didn't create add method, because those are defined in a old class. Okay, so that is how we can define. So if you say like so the methods if you want to use, so those are exist in some class, so directly you can import the class, like you can inherit the class, and you can, if you want to add any functionalities, you can add here. Okay, so that is the advantage of inheritance. So instead of creating a same thing here, the new class, you can inherit it and you can use it. Okay, so and one more thing here. So if you see for first object uh, you can call only for add method. For second object you can call add and the new method. So if you give sub here, the first object, it won't run. It will throw an error because this won't have the sub method. Okay, so that is the difference. So this will call it as super class, and this will call it as a subclass. Like this is the base class and this is the subclass. Okay, the subclass is inheriting properties from the base class. Okay, and even we have two methods, right? If you want to see dir of and dir of ob1. Okay, so this will give full information. See the first one, which is containing doc and init and module and a and add b. Okay, so a and b are the variables and this is the method, and doc init module a and add and b and sub. See, so this is we added extra, so here it is not there, so that is the difference. Okay, so the subclass will have both properties like base class and subclass, but base class will have only base class properties. Okay, so that is what inheritance. So this is like single inheritance, because one level only we inherited. uh, Sorry, yeah, so this is a single inheritance. So similarly we have multiple inheritance. Let's say we have arithop and arithop 1, and we can create one more like arithop 2. Okay, so here I want to use both classes properties, like arithop comma arithop 1. Okay, so we'll create a new file and we'll tell that for multiple inheritance. So I want to import, I mean, I want to inherit both arithop comma arithmetic combination 1. Okay, this is the syntax. You can import, you can inherit two or more classes also. Okay. See, so I'm just creating object for the third class. So this third class will having properties of first and second class. So if I create object, so this will go to the init. So these two methods are not having init, so the first it will consider and it will define the constructor here, and I'm just calling the add method. So add is having in this class, so that will execute here. See, 30. Okay, similarly I can use this up and I can use this multiple action also. Okay, you can see, so sub is 10 minus 20 minus 10 and multiplication 10 into 20 200. Okay, like this you can use. And if you print diagraph, okay, so doc into module a add b multiplication and sub, so both it is having. Okay, so that is how we can create multiple inheritance, like multiple objects, multiple classes we can give. Okay, so you can see some diagram here. So this counter is the base class and we are deriving three subclasses like account, member and employee. Okay, so for multiple inheritance this is a syntax class and you can give multiple classes here. Okay, so now overriding methods. So let's say in base class we have one method. So in base class we have add method. So if you want to if you define the same class here, def add of uh, see, the same method we have in base class and derived class. Okay, if you have these kind of things, so what it will happen? So this will override with the base class. So we have same method, then this will override with the base class method. So if you call add now, add here, then what will happen? It won't go to here and it will execute this part, the second one. For class, yeah, class 1 object that will work, but this at top one object, so it won't work because it will consider as a so latest method, so this will override with the base class method. So this particular line, so this will print Wow, ready. See, wow, ready. Okay. So like this, it will override the methods. So we have two more things. So this is the overloading between classes from base class to derived class. We can override. So similarly, we have a few more things like base overload methods and operating overloading operators. So overloading methods and overloading operators. So like default. Class will have this below method. So if you want to override, if you want to overload those, so you can define these classes, these methods inside the class, and you can write your own statements. Okay. So default, it will be like first one is constructor underscore underscore init. So this will have default. Okay. So what we are doing, we are just overriding that, overloading that. So we're just defining constructor, and we are doing our operation whatever we want. Okay. Next, delete. So this is the instructor. Default, it will delete. So if you want to do some operation, you can write it. So how you did for distraction, like one more underscore underscore represent underscore underscore. Okay, this is for string representation. Okay. If you want to if you want to print some string, you can use this. So default, so I'll use python is equal to test. Okay. So this represent, it will print like this. Okay. So we just define as here. So I just want to see if I print the object, it is printing the main method and the class name and instant at the particular memory location. Okay. So if I print for represent of, See, if you give represent of overload the class name, so that will print like this. So type is a class and main dot overload at the particular memory location. Okay. So if you want to overload this, so you can define the function like this. So default the behavior of the represent is like this. So instead of that, if you want to overload that, def underscore underscore self print some custom, like you will see now. see here. So when you say represent of, so that will call this, and this needs a return statement. So we are just printing that. So that is the reason it is asking return statement. So we are just returning overload. So it is printing overload class in overriding class, and it's printing returning this and that also printing. So it's printing both overriding class and overload. Okay. So if you say print also, normally print, what will print? It will print the object like this. It will print. Um, like this, but we are just overloading the represent function. Okay, so that is all. Similarly the string also. So if we specify string for print str of, see, the string for print. So normally print, it will print the object full description, but if you overload with string, so string is the function for print. So underscore string, so whatever you write here, so whenever you print, so it will execute this particular code. So that is the reason it is printing string overload and overload, and for represent it is printing this particular code. So you can overload the base class functions. So if you not define this, so that will print the class type, so that is the base class. So we are overloading that also. Okay, so similarly for comparison, okay, you can overload with def comparison, and you can compare the object with the value. Okay, so similarly for overloading operators. Okay, so overloading operators, like we have operators like plus, minus, and greater than and less than. So defaultly what those will do, plus operator will add both. Like if you specify python 10 plus 20, what this will do, this will give 10 plus 20 30. So it will add and it will print. So you can overload this operator also. Okay, so how it is. So normally I'm just creating one object, and object 1 equal to overload of Java. Now print, I'm just adding, so we'll see what this will print. See, it is doing a normal add operation, unsupported operand types for plus, because plus requires only numbers or strings, but it won't support for objects or instance. Okay, so that is what it will do, and it is throwing an error. So if you want to override or overload that function, you can can define like the def underscore underscore add, no add self print adding and return uh, overload of. Okay, you can specify. So you are writing print adding and we are returning overload the function name of self one. So we are defining two objects here. So these two are also like object references. So this is for first object and this is for second object. Okay. So first object dot name plus some space plus second object dot name. So the first object is Python and second object is Java. So Python space Java it has to print. Okay. So here so we are just giving object plus object 1 plus object 2. Okay, so the plus itself it will call as a underscore add method, and this will treat this is the first argument and this is the second argument. So self 1 is object and self 2 is uh, object 1. So self 1 object 1 dot name is Python and object 2 dot name is Java. So this has to print overload of Python space Java. So the print is overloading this this return statement. So we have just commenting that. think See, so here what we are doing, so when we say add plus, so we are just printing adding and see, we are just returning off the overload class of self1.name, I mean Python, and other object.name Java. So we are just adding both in Python plus Java, and we are sending that argument to the this class. Okay, so that is what it will happen. So this will give the final object of overload of Python space Java. So we are just printing here. So the print, it will override with string. So we are just printing overload, and we are just returning the overload of self.name. So the name is the argument. So what is the argument here? Python space Java. So it finally it prints Python space Java. Python space Java. So this is the final output. Okay, so similarly we can override for subtraction. For minus we can give underscore sub, underscore multiplication for multiplication, underscore div. So similarly these are the operators we can override. Okay, um, so are you clear with this? Okay, so is it clear now, Vishnuja? Still you're getting disturbance? Okay, so are you clear with this overloading of operators and overloading methods? Okay, fine. So normally we won't use these overloading operators. So explicitly if you want to use in different cases, so you can overwrite, you can overload these operators. Okay, so yeah, I think that's all from classes and objects. So mm, okay, I think we are enough for classes. So we almost completed classes here.